last night I took a couple of online tests in preparation to give this talk to you. One was on the website of the Environmental Protection Agency, and these were tests evaluating my carbon footprint. You guys know what that means? That's okay. So on the Environmental Protection Agency test, I found out that I only create 574 tons of CO2 emissions a year, and the average American creates 20,750. So I create about a 40th of what the average American creates. On the other hand, I went to another site of the Center for Sustainable Economies, and I found out that it would still take 1 3/4 Earths to support my lifestyle. And the site was very apologetic and said, it's not really anything that you're doing. This just has to do with the country that you live in and the city that you live in. These things are being spent that don't have anything to do with you. So I'm here to, those are my credentials for inviting you to consider, to think about living really a carbon neutral life. Obviously, because some of the things that make your life, that create carbon emissions in your life are things you don't have much control over. But your personal use is something that you do have control over. Now, some people, when they say carbon neutral life, they mean, I'll just fly my private plane, eat steak every day, run 30,000 watts of Christmas lights in my front yard, and then I'll buy offsets, you know? And someone is going to plant trees somewhere, and I probably will never see those trees, but I paid for them to be planted. That is not what I mean by a carbon neutral life. I mean that you never use that power in the first place. So how did I get to this point? Well, actually, Peter's talk made me remember that even before I had a fire in my house in 2000, I was already very aware that 20% of electricity in Massachusetts comes from nuclear power. So every time I would leave a light burning in a room where it didn't need to be, or where I wasn't, I was generating a tiny little bit of waste that was going to maybe last for 100,000 years. So that makes you start to become really super aware of when you're leaving a light burning that you don't need to. In 2000, I had a fire in my house in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And the fire didn't affect most of the house. It just affected primarily the basement. And I lost all my running water, all my heat, and all my electricity. And it turned out that I didn't put those things back right away. And I got kind of interested in an experimental, perverse, and maybe slightly masochistic way in what I really needed or didn't need. The first couple of months I stayed with friends, and I actually tried to find a place to stay beyond that, but I couldn't. And I remember moving back into the house in January and going to sleep that first night without heat in the house. And fortunately, I had these amazing quilts, and I'm lying heaped up under these quilts with just the tiniest little tip of my nose, you know, emerging to breathe. And then I slept like a complete rock, and I woke up with a frosty little tip of my nose. And I began to realize that my body had capacities that I really had never thought about. And I came to think of the body that we all live in as the long body, because the bodies we have are the same bodies, virtually the same bodies as our Neolithic ancestors. And electricity's only been around for less than 200 years. Actually, only a couple of generations. So we're actually acclimatized, we're adapted to a world without central heat. Of course, actually there's civilized places right on the planet right now that have no central heat. For example, Japan. We think of Japan as a highly cultivated place, right? Aikido, Zen, calligraphy, sushi, Hello Kitty, right? Very, very few Japanese homes have central heating. It's cold at night. People who live there and are students, they have small stoves that everyone clusters around, and then they curl up in their quilts on their futons, sleep through the night. And my friend Liz Rogers, who lives at Findhorn, which is an intentional community in Scotland, which has succeeded in getting its carbon footprint the lowest of any community in the developed world. And she confessed to me that the one thing she really misses is that feeling when you're lounging around on a cold day, but it's like warm, and you're in your nightgown, you're reading the Sunday Times, like that. She was like, oh, I wish we still had that. So we're not living in our Neolithic body most of the time. We're living in a world, on the contrary, where the flow of energy into our lives is exceptionally seamless. It's almost, when I started thinking about this, it's like electricity came in as servants were going out, and electricity enabled the middle and working class to have the equivalent of servants, like the hot water that's always there for you, and better than servants. You know, don't get drunk, don't like run off for the weekend to go gambling. No, that hot water heater in your basement is always there, and when you turn on that hot water, it's there for you. Maybe sometimes you go to Mexico or France and you realize that there's other places where you have to actually put a coin in the hot water meter, or you have to turn it on before, 20 minutes before you take your shower so it warms up. But not here. We actually never think about it. In fact, 5%, this is from The Economist in 2006, 5% of residential electric use is just things that are on that are doing nothing. Like your microwave that's just showing you the time, or the TV that's just plugged in. You don't even have it turned on. This has the amazingly elusive name of phantom load. It's like what we're carrying that really gives us nothing except that readiness to just be there as soon as we flick it on. And that's $3 billion worth of energy. But that is delightful, not having to wait for your computer to start up, and just being able to turn it on, or just being able to turn the TV on and have the picture there right away. It is delightful, but how delightful is it? Is it like toxic waste delightful, wars in the Middle East delightful, end of the last pristine environment on Earth delightful, global warming delightful? It's something that we love to have, but do we need it? So as I was working on this talk, this guy, Gernot Wagner, who's maybe it's Wagner, I don't know. He's an economist for the Environmental Defense Fund. And he wrote an essay, an op-ed in the Times called Going Green and Getting Nowhere. And he argues that making all of our personal attempts to recycle or bike rather than take our car, or buy sustainable seafood, or whatever we're doing, it's all useless because we need political action. I actually think that if every one of you reduced your carbon intake to 1/40th of the average American, That would be something. And if every American did that, I don't think it would be useless. Of course, you're already New Yorkers. You live in a very dense environment. A lot of you don't have cars. You're already totally, you're probably not using as much as the average American family. New York, rumors to the contrary, is actually very, very sustainable in terms of its energy usage. Now, most people that argue that personal efforts mean nothing are saying that what people are doing isn't enough, and that anyway, most people won't do this, so why even bother to think of it? And although I do not agree, I'm actually really sympathetic. I think there's several problems with the green movement as it's been presented, and even just the fact that you can call it the green movement means there's a problem. It's like, oh, you got to recycle, our green friend is here. It's not like, I mean, obviously for this to work, it can't be a little coterie thing. One thing I particularly think is so off the wall is in Cambridge and Somerville, we have Walk Ride Day. One day a month, everyone is supposed to walk or ride their bicycle instead of taking their car. And there's a big party, you get lots of discounts, and there's a special T-shirt. And I'm like, come on, why isn't it one day a month when you drive your car? Another issue with the green movement are the absolutely massive contradictions in the lives of people who are trying to change how they consume and how they live. And a good example is in Findhorn, that community that I told you about in Scotland, where people have lowered their carbon footprint to the lowest point in the developed world. People are, the one Achilles heel of their project is that people in that community fly more than twice as much as anyone else in Scotland. Because, you see, they've made this fabulous discovery. So now they have to fly all over the world and tell people about it. The third problem with the green movement, as I see it, is the know-it-all attitude of people who make you feel bad for not doing things which are actually not really good solutions. Like those curly light bulbs that are like, to me, they're like skim milk as opposed to whole milk. Like, they're kind of bluish and depressing. So the point is not to substitute your, it's like being green would be a wan, less fun, less welcoming experience than what we have right now. But in fact, you don't need an incandescent light bulb or a, I don't know what they call them, fluorescent light bulb. What you need to do is go where the light is. Like Picasso and Matisse, who had that incredible cafe life in France, they didn't have the money to heat their studios or light them. Or the air-conditioned movie we remember so fondly that kids would all go to on a hot summer day. Or people sitting in a bar, 100 people around one TV screen watching the soccer game. That's that vaunted community that we complain about having lost. Or low-flow shower heads. A carbon-neutral life is not a low-flow shower. Or the low-carbon diet. Like, who is doing the marketing there? Like, do diets work? Do we like them? Do we want to be on them? A carbon-neutral life is not a diet. It's a meal. It's the meal that we've been hungry for when we go camping. We see the faces of people in indigenous people on National Geographic, and we wonder, how come our friends don't look so happy or strong? People are going that I should wind it up, and I'd like to just tell you, one thing that makes me kind of hopeful is I don't know if anybody follows chowhound.com. It's a listserv of restaurant lovers. And I've noticed that on that listserv, the very same people who were comparing high-end restaurants are now comparing ways to store their CSA vegetables in their basements using peat moss and dairy crates. So you guys are from Hunter, and you're all really smart. And I don't think I need to tell you what to do. I think what we need is all of your creativity and intelligence being brought to bear on reducing your and each other's carbon footprint right now. In a carbon neutral life, it's not low flow. Hot is hot, cold is cold, dark is dark, light is light. And you learn again in your body the nature of the essential forces we live among. And there's no light pollution. And at night, you see stars.